rules don't matter. If there were rules before we came here, those rules should be applied. If people come here and start arguing exceptionalisms because they are senators, that is not right.
Yes.
No. So there is not going to be 20 minutes for anybody.
With all due respect,
no.
I take exception to this comment.
Feel free to take exception. This is our country too.
Please. The organizers, you need to get this thing right. Please. I take exception to his comment. Please. Please. Please.
Please.
There's no problem, sir. I never made any reference to you.
Yeah, he will.
This is our country too. There are rules, and you cannot change them here. Go to the Senate and change them.
Excuse me. 10 minutes. So, we are going to start with the senator representing the first bill.
Our nation. You all elected us. We are your true representatives. Where we erred, you have every right to bring us back to track. And I believe this is a discourse that should give that opportunity to everyone to hear out his voice, so that we amend or we mend that difference that we have. The presumed differences we have in these legislations are only individuals. We are talking about what will bring this country united, what will bring the cause of a new Nigeria, where you and I will be proudly be seen as Nigerians. I will want to use this opportunity to apologize to everyone here that the time issue should not be an issue, but the substance of what we are going to present and what diverse or the opposite opinions are is what we should take to go back to the National Assembly with it and said, look, Nigerians believe that we should do it this way. So we cannot be confrontational. Being panelists here, I see us as one. And I see that we are only trying to put something we have put on the table already, especially my bill. It has gone through the second reading. I'm only waiting for the public hearing. And I will stand anywhere, and that is the more reason why I felt it's very important for me to be at this forum. I cannot be right totally, neither can you be right totally. But when both of us come together and see what is right for this country, it is what we should adopt. I will go straight into my best Falsehood and Manipulation Act bill. This bill is not to gag the press. This bill is not to deny you the right to operate your social media platforms, or for you not to have your handles. This bill is only coming in to regulate, most especially, our attitude towards how we disseminate our information to others. I can send anything I wish on the social media platforms, and I feel it's my right, and I feel it's okay for me to do that. But where my own right starts and stops, it's where your own right also will start. It is not about limiting anyone's free speech and should not be regarded as such. It is about appropriating everyone's rights. I will quote Devin Coldway, who said, "The boundaries of our personal rights have been summed up more or less concisely in the observation that they end where those of others begin." And this is a perfectly good lamp by which to guide our actions in many cases. But the internet has led to the destruction of locations and identity as necessary considerations where we are calculating our rights and privileges. I will give a simple example. So many people are on platforms watching us live as we are performing here. where I tried to trample on the right of Odekalu, someone out there will see it wrongly. And where he trampled on my own right, someone will also make a sense of saying he did not do it right. And that is the essence of this town hall meeting. This bill, as it's been presented to the National Assembly, it was read on Tuesday, 5th November 2019, for the first time. I stand before you this afternoon to leave this discussion of what today has become an issue of national discourse. The Internet Falsehoods and Manipulation and Other Related Matters Bill, which proposes a framework and system of regulation, control and conduct in relation to the use of Internet and its intermediaries in the transmission of information in Nigeria. According to Frederick Bastiat, a French economist, he said, when misguided, let me quote him, when misguided public opinion honors what is despicable and despises what is honorable, punishes virtues and reward vice, encourages what is harmful and discourages what is useful, applauds falsehood and smoother truth under indifference or insult. A nation turned its back on progress and can only be restored only by the terrible lessons of catastrophe. Are we going to wait till then? No. And this is the reason why we failed. Disseminating disinformation, miscommunication, falsehood are tantamount to bringing disunity to this country. Now we cannot allow that to happen before we do something about the danger and stress us in the fact as a nation. We are precisely looking at what other nations have suffered as a result of disinformation. And we felt this bill is appropriate, is important, and this is the time. But I'm also aware of the apprehensions in a section of the media and the general public, and it is important we allay those fears. This bill is not an attempt to stifle free speech or dissenting views. It is rather an opportunity to address a growing threat which, left unchecked, can cause serious damage in our polity and disrupt peaceful coexistence. While the Internet has democratized information, the fact remains that it has also weaponized it in the process. That is why governments, legislations across the world are trying to mitigate the risks associated with misinformation transmission via Internet networks by monitoring abuse and deliberate misconduct. That is the essence of this bill. Has a phone, has a digital phone in his hand. I can be in the comfort of my bedroom and decide to disseminate whatever information I want to. I can be at the comfort of my room, try to Photoshop a picture of someone I feel I want to bring him down, and I send it to the whole world. And the transmission is like the speed of the light. The moment you throw it, it's everywhere. I do not think there can be anybody that uses the social media more than also I do. Because 60% of my time, at a free time, I try to browse to see what is happening in the world. How is it, as a Nigerian, I would stand every day to go on the media and nothing positive I will see. All I will see is the regulatory statements, ethical divisions, misinformations, and lies flying everywhere. Do we want to continue misinforming each other and think we believe in progress? I think it's not the right thing to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is the right forum for us to look at the framework at which I present this bill. Of governments, not only Nigeria, France, China, United Arab Emirates, and many others have decided to regulate the social media. You go to Dubai and you still use your internet, you still use your handset, you still use Twitter, Facebook, and everything. But even you, within you as an individual, you know that they have laws, they have regulated it, there are certain things you cannot post. And even if you do post them, the intermediaries that provide these transmissions will not allow that thing to cross. Why are we not complaining when we get to those countries? Why are we saying it's fundamental human rights and it's freedom? And why is it that we cannot regulate it and make it better for our own country? We have children, less than 16 years. Today in Nigeria, I can assure you that a child of 13 who holds a phone and goes on the internet can browse anything. When I mean anything, unlimited. Even in the advanced countries, it's not done like that. So why can't we regulate ours? The advent of the internet has provided humanity numerous benefits. I plagiarized. Then do we want to say that the Nigerian judicial system has been plagiarizing laws that we have taken from India? Or the common laws that we have taken from England? Or even the criminal law that we copied from Ghana? Word for word. Is that plagiarism? So I believe legislation also has approved this, calling for how countries can legislate and bring out uniform, especially in illicit crimes. So when you're talking about this information in the internet in Nigeria, what is the difference of that same information that we refer to as disinformation here, as misrepresentation here, and taking it to do in the United Arab Emirates? The class 2 of my legislation, where I think the distinguished MD of AIT has also made a reference to a situation where it borders on our friendly nations. It's just a matter of point I'm raising here. Will you go to Dubai and disseminate an information that you know is detrimental to the peace and unity of that country? If you will abide by their laws, then what stops you also from abiding by your homegrown law? Okay, let me quickly do. Motivated by geographical interest, identity politics, state and non-state actors, especially most of us that are here, there are people from the civil societies, there are people from the different political divides, have all agreed and will all agree with me that the use of falsehood and misrepresentation in the internet have cost us so much. When I mean so much, today, without any fear of contradiction, I will tell you, certain people that occupy certain positions, certain public positions today, should not be there. But the issue is that the moment you raise those issues, there are players, there are actors back there that will throw everything on the internet. And the next thing, they overcloud senses, maturity, and understanding of facts. Individuals and groups influenced by ideologies and deep-seated prejudices in different countries use internet falsehood to surreptitiously promote their causes. Even in Nigeria, this is what happens. I'm sure a lot of us are aware of what happened, especially during our campaigns. We campaigned dirty. Instead of going to the basics of what will bring I and you to be seen as different, what we bring is totally different than just to condemn the opponent. The perceived opponent is seen during that period as even not a Nigerian. And I believe this has to be checked. Misinformation have caused us economic problems in this country. We have lost so much in this country because of lack of funds. I want to stop here before I go into the nitty-gritty when questions are asked about the framework and the tyrants that we are putting in this legislation. Thank you very much.
Organizers for inviting me. And I want to say that I see this as a very, very essential process in our democratic journey. And of course, this is the very first time that a bill in the National Assembly will be singled out by a media outfit for a town hall meeting, to the best of my knowledge. And this is very commendable. And I hope and pray that we will continue to do this for other bills that members of the National Assembly will sponsor. As a prologue, permit me to shed some light on what I term misconceptions and misinformations on the bill when it came out. The bill is titled A Bill for an Act to Provide for Independent National Commission for the Prohibition of Hate Speeches and Other Related Matters. First, I want to place on record that I personally sponsored this bill. I have no any other person backing me on this. And I did this in my capacity as a senator representing Niger North, and therefore a representative of the people. The sponsorship of this bill is born out of my desire to find a lasting solution to incessant and continuous case of incitement to discrimination, hostilities, and violence in Nigeria, with resultant death of many innocent Nigerians, destruction of their properties and livelihood, for which many of them never recovered for the rest of their life when those events happen. And of course, most importantly, the need to consolidate our democracy by promoting national cohesion and integration. Let me state that to understand the subject of my bill, which actually began in the 8th Senate, when it was first introduced, and I stepped down further action because at that time I saw that politics was already creeping in, and it will be so politicized that the import of the bill will be lost. So as a procedure, if I don't take it further, nobody does. And so with the effluxion of time of the 8th Senate, that bill died a natural death. Fortunately, I was re-elected by my people, and I'm a member of the 9th Senate. So I decided to reintroduce the bill again, because I'm convinced beyond reasonable doubt that Nigeria has witnessed so much violence with people being killed innocently that we cannot, as leaders and as citizens, fold our arms for this to continue. And so, in sponsoring this bill and in putting it together, I had cause, of course, to delve into the literature, reports, and studies, both official reports and even private studies. And fortunately, I will say that there are quite a large number of Nigerian academia that have studied the subject of hate speech in all its ramifications. And I was more than proud and impressed at what I saw out there in the body of literature. In doing this also, let me say that I worked with a barrister who is a friend of 24 years standing. He's from Rivers State, a Christian. I'm from Niger State. I'm a Muslim. I'm from Borgu. But we are convinced that, look, the loss of life of innocent Nigerians deserves attention. And so we work together to put this bill as it is. But let me also add that no one bill is perfect. And I believe that is why we have amendments to bills. That is why we even have abrogation to bills. That is why we have repeal the freedom of expression and the press. And this bill is not designed to do that. Fourthly, the bill was drafted taking cognizance of my oath of office as a Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for which, of course, I swore to defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Finally, I know as a matter of fact that many people have closed their minds to the facts of the matter and have already biasly concluded that the bill is bad even without reading it. Many people did not read the bill when they condemned it. And, they did not also understand it. Well, let it be known that no one bill is perfect. And that is why opportunities like this, when provided, are designed for us not to take the baby, the bath, and the bathwater and throw away, but to look at what needs to be clean, so that at the end, we can come out with a collective action consummated through the content of the bill to address what we believe is a very serious national issue. The spate of useless killings in Nigeria is one that definitely we must work to stop. Now, there are so many definitions as far as the subject of hate speech is concerned. For the rest of my presentation in the next 10 minutes, I would like to look at what is hate speech.
Okay, so I'll take it from a presentation I had to do last year at the EU with respect to the crackdown on the civic space. And between 2015 and now, not to point fingers at any government, because from what we are seeing from both political parties, from the south down to the north, an abuse of the rights of Nigerians is an equal all for play right now. When a senator says this bill is imperfect, we need to question who will bear the brunt of the imperfection of a bill. And in Nigeria, given our history with human rights, our poor human rights records, and every other thing you put into cognition on in this conversation, the Nigerian citizen will bear this. And so when we are talking of death sentence and you say all of us, Senator, you know it's not all of us. When you're talking of these bills and you say we are all the masses, no, we are not all the masses. Going forward, it's important, he had tried to, bury a little bit of that plagiarism. And I think we spend 120-something billion on the National Assembly yearly. And the least we can ask of our lawmakers is actually to sit down and take the time to write down the bills that they want passed for us.
No clapping.
And so,
excuse me, no clapping. No clapping.
We expect this. I think, how much are we looking at for renovation of that? 37 billion. And then there is 120. We're hearing all of these billions. I've never seen that money in my life, never been involved in any transaction that has that kind of money brought into play. But the truth is, you are paid to spend time to draw this. And not only are you paid to do that, you are supposed to take time to consider the Nigerian situation. And I will not have it. He's like an elder brother and uncle to me. We're very friendly, but on this issue, no. I will not have you be in that office and not take your time for something you are paid to do. Human rights in Nigeria is a very tricky issue. It's out there. We're looking at journalists arrested, heads of international organizations arrested, Amnesty Nigeria constantly under attack, people arrested, enforced disappearances for things they are saying. And these things are not necessarily lies. If we are going to take the time to break down why people have gone through what they are going through, you will find out that at the back of this is an abuse of human rights. Now back to, I believe that we have tackled this enough in the media. Back to one key issue. Who wants to determine what hate speech is? Who wants to determine what fake news is? It is the political class. And that is very problematic. That the fake news for you and the fake news for me is different. That when you are saying that, oh, in the court, you can break this down. No. We know the history of the Nigerian judiciary, and for all it means, they are really trying their best. But as it is, our judiciary is greatly undermined. We must call these truths out. So when somebody with enough power goes to the judiciary for your case on this law, who is going to bring out this thing and say, oh, at AIT's town hall, the senator said? No one. And these are the issues again. If we keep breaking down these things step by step, he made mention of Elizabeth Warren. I also do not take it kindly that we keep referring to countries, no offense meant, Dubai and Singapore, who are not exactly the bastions of human rights and democracies, as the examples for what Nigeria should follow. Now, going forward, these bills, when you talk of Elizabeth Warren and any other foreign country with respect for human rights, when they are tackling hate speech, when they are tackling fake news, they tackle big tech. And they call the people from big tech to self-regulate. This cannot be so hard to think about. This cannot be so hard to break down, that these organizations can self-regulate. If you're on social media long enough, you know that the Nigerian social media cluster is very important. So important that the heads of these organizations have to come down here. Why can't you ask for them to localize operations, to regulate, follow up their regulations and know that, look, your business as government is not with the people. There are not with arresting and clamping down on the people for these things. There are enough law enforcement agencies to arrest Nigerians. You can count. There are enough commissions. We are doing 140 and counting. And a senator in the poverty capital of the world is asking for another commission on whose bill, on whose taxes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Distinguished senators here present, please may I respectfully stand on the existing protocols. My own case is very simple. I'm sitting in for Professor Yuji Dambata, and I work for the Nigerian Communications Commission. Our work and our commitment to the Nigerian people is to ensure universal access of telecommunications infrastructure to Nigeria. We have continued to work on this, and we will continue to work on this to ensure that at least there will be points of presence in all 774 local governments. However, for the purposes we are sitting here today, which is the spread and exposure to hate speech and fake news, is actually enhanced by the increased access to information and communications technologies. Today, people are increasingly having access to internet-related channels or platforms to spread both fake news or hate speech. And it is because of what we are continuing to do. But if you look at the flip side of it, you will understand that there are so many other things that are also carried in the channels of telecom infrastructure. And telecom infrastructure, therefore, we must continue to build it out to reach everybody. The NCC does not regulate content that is carried on the internet. So we'll be here talking about how to ensure the internet gets to everybody, everywhere in Nigeria. And that was why very recently the Ministry of Communications was renamed Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, because our Honorable Minister, Dr. Issa Patami, has said and is encouraging the digitalization of Nigerian economy. And when we are talking about carried by the telecom infrastructure, but while we say that, we can as well mention that there are some solutions that we can use to curtail what people carry on the internet that we are carrying. We must look at the addresses of content before you resend or reprogram or continue to spread, and be sure that we are using the infrastructure which we are working very hard to deploy appropriately. Nigeria is for all of us. It is not in our interest to destroy Nigeria. I will, at this time, yield my time back so that...
To listen to our lawmakers on the panel. First, we must understand that Nigeria is a country without consequences. We don't have consequences, that's why we have such a bill introduced at our National Assembly. We need to also ask ourselves, do we want to practice democracy or we want something else? Because we can't say we're a democratic nation and then have a bill that seeks to regulate the users. In France today, the government is focused on regulating businesses that provide platforms. So why are we trying to stifle freedom of expression? Before technology, we all have rights. And we say Nigeria is trying to ensure that we're contributing to that digital economy. But then we're here discussing how we can take those rights from users. I am not surprised that the social media space is saturated with hate or misinformation. We're a country that we have over 100 million people that are very poor, and everything they think about is how they can provide food for their families. We're a country where women still die from giving birth. Today, if your neighbor is pregnant, we will start fasting and praying instead of celebrating. Today, our unemployment rate is over 23%. An idle man is the devil's workshop. I had expected that our National Assembly would come up with regulations and policies that would help create jobs. The digital economy is a huge opportunity to ensure potential, to ensure growth, and to increase our GDP. The hate speech bill, the social media bill, would impact our GDP. If you want to regulate, call Twitter, call Facebook, and regulate them, not the users. I think that it is important for us to agree once and for all that for us to move forward, we must first of all throw this bill out of the National Assembly. It is okay to agree or disagree with me, but it is my right to share what I think. My colleagues have highlighted how much money goes into the National Assembly. And interestingly, when I watched the DW video over the weekend, I had thought that the chairman would reach out and say this event has been postponed. Why are we conversing on an issue that the Honorable Minister said does not exist? Why are we having the conversation? I think that we need to think about the future. It's not about now. Beyond 2019, beyond 2023. Our distinguished are in office now and they want this bill passed, right? After 2023, if you're no longer in office, probably you'll be the first person to be hanged. If we want to regulate people using social media, this is about an elitic battle. It's not about the poor people. Let's regulate our politicians rather than focus on poor people that are trying to survive. Thank you.
And fellow Nigerians, good afternoon. This is a very interesting conversation. I just wanted to sum up what we've heard today. The Attorney General of the Federation called us miscreants. Honorable Debumi was addressing the Nigerians. The distinguished senator, my brother, the Baradan Borgu, came here to change the rules, spent 20 minutes and did not tell us one thing, one provision inside his bill. And the distinguished senator, Sani Musa, misrepresented the contents of Senator Elizabeth Warren's bill. If we had applied their bills, they'd all be dead or in jail. But because we are generous people, we advocate their right to live and their right to make mistakes. They represent, both of them, Niger State. Terrific state, wonderful people. 76,378 square kilometers. 9.3% of the landmass of Nigeria. 23 local government areas. Niger State is ungovernable.
25 local government.
The reason Niger State is ungovernable is because the place has too much landmass. It is also experiencing terrible killings at the moment from bandits. And 2/3 of the senators in Niger State think that the biggest problem we've got is hate speech. That tells you what problems we have got. That the problem is not to secure Niger State, which is just next door to this federal capital territory. It does not bother them. It does not give them sleepless nights. What gives them sleepless nights? To guillotine Nigerians because we've exercised the right to speak. That is the problem we have got. And the argument here, the defensiveness tells you all you need to know. The distinguished senator on hate speech, for Hate Speech Central, spent all his time telling us everything except the contents of his bill. And what does he say? You know what? We've got a law against murder in Nigeria, but murder still goes on. So what do? Let's establish a murder commission. And with a murder commission, let's do more murders, and let's establish another murder commission. Can you listen to that? That is legislation, and we're invited to the expensive chambers of the National Assembly to do what? To perfect the establishment of a murder commission, because murder exists in Nigeria and does happen. And so, I've got 5 minutes, but this is not going to take 5 minutes. What did you hear? On this he was factually accurate. In 2011, there was the Sheikh Lemu bill, and Sheikh Nuruddin Lemu is from Niger State too. Terrific state, I told you. They gave us IBB too. And what happened? In 2011, their conclusion was that the post-election violence was caused by inflammatory campaigns by politicians like him, like Baraden Bogu here. This bill is not about inflammatory rhetoric by people like him. It is about people like you and I. Like my sister said, they want to kill us as citizens because that's all they want to do. They don't want to kill politicians. If this bill were about slaughtering politicians, it will probably not be there because we don't need to slaughter politicians. They are important people. And let me end on this note. This debate takes place today, 48 hours after the death of Arthur Nwankwo. Can I please request that we observe a minute's silence in his memory, if you don't mind, Madam Moderator, and I will explain why. Madam, it is important in my view that we do observe a moment of silence for Arthur Nwankwo, because we are here today because of that man. Thank you very much. Did that, and in 1909, they stopped us with the sedition bill. And in 1909, the senator took 20 minutes. He changed the rules here. In 1909.
But you agreed for 5 minutes.
In 1909.
You were the propounder of 5 minutes.
In 1909, Herbert Macaulay wrote a book about why people, they wanted to send him to jail. In 1981, Arthur Nwankwo wrote a book about Jim Nwobodo's abuse of Anambra State. They sent him to jail. Because of him, the courts in Nigeria abolished sedition in 1985. And in 2020, somebody wants to hang us for speaking our minds. Thank you.
With bills like this, often you will see, or with conversations like this, there will be a lot of fireworks, a lot of heat, not a lot of light. This kind of conversations force people to take very extreme positions, and then, there's a back and forth and all that. I think that for this kind of issue, for me, it's important for us to start on a platform of consensus, in the sense that there are things that we know that we can all agree on. One of which is that the issues of fake news, hate speech, are problems that affect all of us. We all have, I'm sure that many people here have been victims in some way or the other. You've had, you've been a victim of fake news, you've seen hate speech at work. Last year, the BBC published this article, this investigative piece titled Like, Kill, Share, which showed that a lot of the killings in Plateau State actually happened because of hate speech and fake news shared on WhatsApp. So I think it's not in doubt that these are issues, these are problems. Where the issue, I think, lies is in making that conversation a government versus the people conversation. Unfortunately, I think that some of the fault also lies with government in framing the conversation that way, that it's the government versus the people. But it's not. Fake news, hate speech is a situation of Nigeria versus malicious people, who want to undermine the unity and the well-being and the security of Nigeria. Those malicious people can be found in and out of government. So it's not a conversation of, it should not be seen as government versus the people. I think Hamzat made the point about, look, nobody is going to be in government forever. The people who passed, let me use the example of the Cybercrime Act in 2015. Many of them are no longer in government today. Many of the people that will pass the bills, that we are talking about now, in another 4 years will not be in government. So it's important to lay that foundation, that these are issues that we have no controversy about. I have been both a journalist and now I work in government. And, my time in government is obviously limited, like all other people who come to government. So for me, the challenge has always been that how does one rise out of that, framing of this as government versus the people, to look at it from a bigger picture, a bigger perspective, which is the most important thing. How do we look at these issues? First of all, the question to ask is, do we have all the stakeholders involved in the conversation? It seems to be, we talk about government, we talk about bloggers. I don't see a lot of conversation about the technology companies in this conversation. I don't see a lot of that. I don't see the judiciary in this conversation at all. Whenever any bill gets passed, the people who the final arbiters, the people who make judgments are judicial officers. So have we asked ourselves, do we have all the stakeholders in this conversation? If we don't, I think it's problematic. I imagine that there are people who assume or expect me to, because I'm a government official, to speak from a certain point of view. But, the way I see it, I'm just not sure we are having, we've taken the best possible approach to this conversation. It should be a conversation that involves everybody. All the stakeholders, the technology companies, civil society, media, as opposed to a conversation that sounds like government has made up its mind on an issue and wants to impose it on the rest of Nigerians. As long as that continues, I think that we will continue to have these conversations. If you've noticed, every few years we have a bill like this that comes up and dies. If we are not careful, in 2050, we will still be here. A new National Assembly will come into office. Somebody will come with a bill, make the same mistakes that all the people before have made, and the bill will die. And nothing happens. So for me, in terms of my final word would be that I think that we need to step back from the fireworks. You know, I know this bill invites a lot of extreme positions. But we need to step back, take a big picture, look at it, learn from the mistakes of the past, and think of it as this is Nigeria versus the people, versus malicious people, not government versus citizens. Thank you.
Thanks for everyone. I think I agree with Tolu, we need to agree on a consensus. And for me, where it starts is that our freedoms are not negotiable. The laws that stand, the proposed bills would definitely encroach on our human rights and our freedoms. And while we have this conversation in terms of where your right starts, that's where mine stops, that particular line of argument needs to change, because we are talking about our rights. Because collectively, we are all suffering the insecurity in this country, and collectively, we are all responsible for ensuring that we can find the solutions to this endemic problem. When we look at what these laws stand for, the question that we all should keep at the back of our mind is, who is defining what falsehoods are? Who is defining what hate speech is? And who is it going to affect? Yes, we have the United Nations standards in terms of definition, but oftentimes where we miss the boat is where we apply it and where it is contextualized. And oftentimes, the person who wields the stick is often wielding it in his or her favor, rather than in fairness and under the rule of law. If we look at the trends that is affecting our country today, our legislators should not be surprised that we are concerned and that we are very suspicious of bills which come in the guise of trying to protect all of us, but which we have learned from experience has been used as tools to oppress and limit dissenting voices. If we also look at the selective application of the Cybercrimes Act, the Terrorism Act, it causes room for us to be very afraid. If we also look at the laws that have been passed in the last 10, 15 years against anti-kidnapping, it hasn't yet reduced kidnapping in our country. So the issue is not more laws, but rather how do we address the root causes of the situation we find ourselves. The hate speech bill proposes to set up a commission that would address this issue. But then what is the role of the National Orientation Agency? What will the Ministry of Justice and the National Human Rights Commission do in terms of human rights education? How are we empowering those institutions in order to play the role that they have been established by law to do? We are not confident, sirs, that these bills will be used fairly, as it has become a trend, an attack on dissenting voices by those perceived or personal distractions of lawmakers and those in government. The draconian nature of these laws make them a dangerous tool in the hands of the unscrupulous. There is no evidence that sentencing people to death and keeping it in our books is a deterrence to violent crimes. Despite the fact that we have so many of these laws, we see that what needs to be addressed is poverty, economic and social inequality. So, my dear senators and representatives present, what we want to see is the good political will and direction of the people. And that means addressing our core needs. We have a Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act that has not been domesticated in all the other states. Why can't we have that as one major thing that every representative we have ensure is applicable all over the country? We have a system whereby people spend so much time in court and they're not able to get recourse. And in the end, people leave things to God. We should not be in a situation where people are living in despair. So I'll end with this note that human rights belong to all of us. We all deserve a life of dignity, and it should not be on a basis of class, our agenda, or where we come from in this country. Thank you.
The rule is we keep it very brief. 30 seconds.
Justice, a disability advocacy organization. I want to say this. Hate speech, in my understanding, hate speech as it is today, is an aftermath of hate act. Mr. Senator, what have you guys done about the hate act, the injustice that is ravaging the country? You cannot slap a child and forbid him to cry. That is gross injustice. Because, for instance, a friend of mine, the wife gave birth to a twin, and he was like, wow, and then he gave back again, and this guy was crying profusely. I said, Paul, can you see this woman have done this again? Because there is nothing to train that child. And if he reacts in that frustration, in that pain, you will go and hang him because he have made hate speech. I think it is unfair. Finally, sir, why grow a body, a baby python that might grow up to destroy all of us? I want to say that hate speech commission is a baby python that can destroy all of us if we don't kill it now.
Legalize, continue to give teeth to what will continue to worsen or that will continue to destroy society. This law is a bad law in its entirety because it duplicates what is already in the system, number one. Like, there is a law against incitement, there is libel law, they are in the books, and then of course it's cybercrime law. So we cannot continue to multiply law. We have seen women killing men or men to regulate or contain adultery. We should cut the size of government. Let us abolish the National Human Rights Commission or the National Regulatory Agency, or abolish all the state-owned media institutions that are supposed to preach national unity. That are supposed
Your time is up, please.
So it's all about education.
1 minute.
Thank you very much.
We are 29.3 persons with disabilities in this country. And our bill was passed to law in January 2019. For too long, we have been excluded, we have been discriminated, we have been underrepresented in government policies and programs. We are not educated, we are the poorest of the poor. National Disability Commission. And we're here talking about hate speech. What are we doing to ensure we have inclusive education, inclusive health facilities, employment for persons with disabilities? What are we doing to include them in our programs? Thank you.
Hate speech or whatever had been taken to court and set aside, and the Federal Republic of Nigeria cannot legislate on speech in whatever form or color. You can't criminalize speech. This is a judgment of ECOWAS court, regional court in Nigeria, that have been passed to the National Assembly. And the Attorney General of the Federal Republic of Nigeria vigorously contested this case in court from 2015 to 2018, when the judgment was delivered, against censoring speech or publication by the press. After this, the senators, since we are continuing with this and spending the taxpayers' money recklessly, my law firm are studying the possibility of bringing an action against these two senators to refund every kobo that have been spent in this fruitless venture called hate speech. Be prepared. The action notice is given to you from here. Thank you.
So we're through with the first.
Let's move to the next.
Yeah.
Isiguzo, the Nigerian national president. One thing I want to establish here is that the lawmakers draw their legitimacy from the people. And from the views that have been expressed here, even in this hall, it's obvious that 99.9% of people here are opposed to this anti-people bill or bills. And there's one thing I want us to take away from here. For the two senators to withdraw these bills and apologize to Nigerians. We have many problems facing us as a people, and this is the least of our problems. Nigerian journalists will mobilize Nigerians to protest against these obnoxious bills. We don't accept them, we reject them, they are anti-people, they are against the tenets of democratic governance. So I want to appeal to the two senators here to do the needful so that we don't need to continue to expend more energy on this fruitless venture. Thank you.
Yeah, Etok. And I've come all the way from Akwa Ibom on account of this. I just want to say, number one, the Bible states clearly that all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient, and that wisdom is profitable to direct. As at this point in our country, I've gone through the two bills. There are some very good things about those bills, very good things, but it is not wise at this time when the young people are dying out of having no job, and they find themselves easy tools in the hands of big men politicians, and they write all these things if they could only make a little living out of it. Let the government concentrate on providing social securities and safety networks for the young people. If they do that, they will win the heart of the people, and this government will be a lot more in the hands of the people. And from what my brother has just said, the NUJ president, he says that over 90% of the people in this hall are not in favor of it. And I just want to say it's very true. For instance, please, if you say this bill should be dropped now, shout yes!
Please, excuse me. Hello?
Bill. Number one, it's important to note that people paid the supreme price for democracy all over the world, from the time of the Magna Carta to the French Revolution to all the struggles in Nigeria. I believe that those who are in government today, who are grandstanding, they also did what previous people did. There are senators today who will not be senators tomorrow. These bills will be used against you. It is important to note one thing, that government is not the house of anybody. And if you think that you can take away the sacred freedom of the right of the people to express themselves, go and read all the constitutions all over the world. You see that the freedom, the right of people to speak their mind was what people, millions of people died for it. Hitler killed 90 million people because he wanted his will to prevail over the world. And that's what we're currently witnessing in Nigeria, where a few people just sit down, they want their will to prevail over 200 million people. Who sent you guys to go and do this bill? Nobody sent you. So basically, please, you guys need to stop disrespecting the Nigerian people.
Your time is up. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Just a minute. A moment, please. Please.
Are we?
You're supposed to hand the mic.
Just a minute. He wants to talk?
Afraid of? Is there anything you are afraid of? Because if you are doing the will of your people, you will not be afraid of anything. If you are doing the right things, your people will be clapping for you. Then you'll be glad they are putting you on social media. So please go take care of your people.
Quick one.
Publication of false news with intent to cause fear and alarm to the public. Section 86, threatening violence. And Section 204, insult to religion. And of course, Section 375 on criminal defamation. All these have taken care of the fears of the sponsors of this bill. So this bill is dead on arrival. Thank you.
You have the courage to come and face us. But now go home
and kill this bill. Go and regulate Facebook, Twitters. They are the people you should regulate, not the masses. Go home, kill this bill before we ask you to refund what you spend in doing it. Thank you.
Of the Civil Liberties Organization, and I'm also Bureau Chief of the Guardian newspapers. Now there is a correlation between this dangerous bill. I have had to engage my friend, Senator Sabi Abdullahi, and I've told him very clearly that Nigerians are not happy with this bill. Now this administration started with Ruga. Ruga failed. They started with national plan for national livestock plan and all that. Nigerians rejected it. Now, the Fulanis are telling Nigerians at this point that all lands in this country belongs to them and that they are ready to do everything possible to grab those lands. And then you come, and this same federal government asks Nigerians to surrender their firearms. If you look at Rwanda, other countries, Central African Republic, when the government wants to oppress the people, they first decapitate them. One, take away the right to defend themselves. The last of the rights, which is a key component of democracy, is the right to freedom of expression, which you and your colleague are vehemently, profoundly committed to taking away from Nigerians. Please, my dear friend, it is a humble advice. Withdraw this bill, apologize to Nigerians, and if you do not apologize, I'm sure people, your own constituents, might want to remove you from office. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you to the issue.